Welcome back to the Stuff for Whatever podcast. Host BQuanchi here. Before I get started, I always like to say the best way to support me in the channel is to like, comment, and subscribe. Watch, engage, all that. And the three main socials I use, well, there's other ones too, I always link them, but the three main ones are YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Because I do gaming on Twitch, and the streams are uploaded back to YouTube channel as VODs. Working on some stuff, mostly video game related channels. Some of the majority of the uploads have been either stream VODs or once a week I've been doing kind of like a let's play style, just kind of like a shorter format in terms of gaming. A lot of it's highlighting indie game demos, but open to suggestions as well. It's kind of weird because it still sees like small growth with the channel, but I don't know, it just doesn't, it's like when it says like what's working, what's not, like is it just a extremely small snowball effect at just like a centimeter a week or something like that? But I don't know, it's a fun hobby and all that, so I get stuff out of it too. Plus, like, if I play games, I might as well just stream it, broadcast it, whatever, just in case if people discover it and think it's cool, more so the game than myself. Because sometimes I think, like, I should try to have a personality with this stuff, and like, I don't got any, or I do, I don't know, I'm being a little self-deprecation with that, but I got a very special podcast this week, and first thing I wanted to talk about, just because something I have some opinions about, I know other people talking about it as well, but the whole deal with South Park and HBO Max getting sued, and like you could probably find a bit of videos to summarize it. So this is kind of like a little bit of my opinions. But the thing is that Trey and Matt, the creators of South Park, got like a ton of money, like a crap load of money. I'm not sure exactly what the details were in terms of like, I know they got renewed for like a lot of seasons and doing specials and stuff like that. And they got and the big thing is that HBO paid a lot of money. I forget the amount, but a lot of money to have exclusive streaming rights for South Park. But then later, Paramount Plus came out, and that's like, I believe it's Viacom who owns like Comedy Central and South Park, and then I guess they've been dragging their feet so long, and then they have their streaming service now, and like, oh crap, well, we can't stream South Park. So the thing is that they did like special events, quote unquote, and that included the one with COVID. I think it was called the pandemic special, because I know the vaccination special or whatever was actual episodes, and then they did the streaming wars and stuff like that. But some of the big issues with that is that as this goes on, there's smaller seasons of South Park, especially when other content is being prior to a competitor. I think even like tongue-in-cheek, almost like spelled it out there in the streaming wars special, which I haven't watched. I did a trial for Paramount Plus, but didn't stick with it. As I might go back to it. And also, a side note, has anyone ever heard of MGM Plus? I believe that's what it's called, but I know that's the movie studios. Like, they have like the lion and the logo that's roaring or something like that. Like, they see like some movies, but like I see that sometimes advertised, but I don't see anyone talking about that. Like, I barely hear people talk about Discovery Plus, and I think that it's probably like a dime a dozen in Peacock, which I think Peacock just has The Office, and that's it. But that's the thing, like, HBO paid a lot of money, and they're getting smaller seasons, and also content is being made for Paramount Plus. And I'm not sure if that's why there's less or smaller seasons, is because they're making content for Paramount Plus. But I can kind of see you with HBO Max being pissed off. So I'm not sure how that's going to run, because I also hear like HBO Max with the merger with Discovery, like Warner Brothers, HBO, and Discovery. It's like a merger, and it kind of sloppy, or I don't know all the details of it. But yeah, I think like the thing is like, oh, they have loopholes. Like, okay, we'll make episodes exclusively to be streamed on. Like, I think they've still been hitting Comedy Central for television broadcast, but for streaming, it goes exclusive to HBO Max. But these are special events. They're different. So they're not binding the contract, so they can make it for Paramount Plus. And I'm not sure what the language was in the contracts with HBO, Warner Brothers, or all that. But you kind of think there would be some like clear expectation, like okay, season has to be this many episodes, delivered in this time frame, stuff like that, and no content in terms of animation of any kind. Because like I guess something you can argue with these specials, like oh the longer format and special like maybe like longer stories and stuff like that. But they already done that in the past season, like they did the Imagination Land trilogy and the Coon and Friends. Even like I said, the vaccination specials, like they did stuff that's like a bigger story and even like played as a special, almost like a movie in a sense, even though it's broken down to like single episodes. But they did that with like the episode format, so that's not really any different from the special events. I have kind of like mixed feelings. Like I grew up watching South Park. I love the show and probably continue to love it and all that. I love a lot of stuff that Matt and Trey put out. And I heard that the recent season is really, really good. I know they had some dips. Like I know they were trying to do more like serialized, more like overarching. I think a little too topical. I know a lot of things they do topical topics and subjects in the episode, but it's maybe got too political. I almost want to like, because I'm talking about COVID too, but I feel like that was part of it as well. Like they really wanted to, like, oh, it's COVID's going on, pandemic, vaccination. So I feel like recent seasons been too much of a time bubble, or kind of like a versus just having a show stand out and stuff. Not to say like they had like stuff as well, like Carmen getting a girlfriend and things like that. So I don't think they were always like, oh, how can we topical this episode? But it just felt like it wasn't quite working. But it was kind of good, for them to be experimental and try different things. So I got to catch up because I have HBO Max and Paramount Plus. But I guess the last thing I wanted to say about this mess, like I can see where WB is coming from, how they want to sue. I think they're suing for like $500 million. But I think down the road this can cause like rifts with creators and shows in the future. Like if someone's trying to get the show picked up for its first season or being renewed, whether big or small, TV executives are going to look at this and say, well, the South Park guys kind of screwed over WB, so now we have to make really stricter, almost unfair, unreasonable contracts and stipulations saying, okay, you have to make these many episodes in this time frame, nothing else to any competitor of any kind of content, and these are the punishments if you do. Like I feel like there's going to be that backlash of, or a ripple effect that, hey, when it comes to another show getting picked up or renewed, it's going to be such harsh conditions that it's like, okay, well, we have to accept them because we want the show to keep going, to be picked up. And it's like executives are going to look at this and like, hey, show creators can screw us over, so we got to be diligent, we got to be vigilant, or whatever you want to call it, to like make sure they don't get screwed over, even though they have tons of money. I don't know about like WB. I know that I hear messy things with mergers and stuff like that, but yeah, I feel like in the long run it's a dick move. But I do want to watch a new season of South Park. I'm behind on that, and I heard it's really good. So it's not like, oh fuck these guys. Like that's not quite cool. Just because, not to say it's like a big network or a big company like Warner Brothers, but like, hey, if this is gonna have a ripple effect to like other shows and creators and opportunities to get picked up or renewed, like that's unfortunate, and I think that's kind of a bummer, but we'll see how things play out. Okay, the next thing I wanted to talk about are furries, or more specifically, am I a furry? And I just kind of think about this a little bit, and I thought it'd be an interesting thing to talk about because I made jokes before, even though it's watching or listening, like, oh, I'm not a furry because it doesn't count if you're in the closet, but I always grew up like watching like I think even with like from your Looney Tunes to other cartoons as well, Disney, like with Robin Hood and stuff like that, seeing all the anthropomorphic animals and stuff like that, and I feel like I lean towards that more. Like I feel like more interesting to see cartoons like that. Like I rather watch Ren and Stimpy and Rocko's Modern Life than the Rugrats or Doug and all that. And am I a furry? I would say, I guess, yeah, but it feels like one of those, like, it's very almost polarizing. almost that there's a stigma to it, and I think that's why people get really like on the fence or defensive when it comes to that label. Because people like, and to be honest, I never really met a furry in person and don't gone to any furry conventions. Just really like artwork and all that, whether it be like in video games or movies or cartoons. I feel like I gravitate to that. And I do watch my animes. I do watch like almost like the sitcom stuff. So it doesn't like, oh, I only watch anthropomorphic animals, but I do like that a lot more. I think sometimes it can just be really expressive, like versus not to say that like human cartoons, like human character cartoons, can't be like overly animated and expressive. But I feel like with animals, it kind of works, and it kind of like breaks that barrier. Like, hey, animals don't normally walk and talk and act like people, so they can have these funny moments where like it's a dog act like a dog, but he's like a human dog, or a cat acting like a cat, but a human cat kind of thing. So I always found it more interesting. And back to the labels, because I think a lot of people think like, oh, a furry is someone who's dressed like a animal, like in a fursuit, or they role play, or they are constantly role playing and stuff like that, and go to conventions. And there's like the adult stuff too, like no kink shaming or anything like that. And I'm not honestly, I feel from what I hear from like podcasts or other stuff too that I'm not sure if that's as big as a thing as people play it up to be. Like, I think it's from the people from the outside you don't know, like say, oh, animals are, what is it, yiffing or whatever, or have their own perversions or sexual escapades, and I don't think that's being part of it. And I think that's why people have this like stigma about it, like, oh, don't call me a furry, because people will think I'm in a fursuit having like random furry sex. And again, nothing wrong with that, especially if it's all consensual. Definitely, like immediate consent. But I feel like that's like a minority of, like, sometimes you see people with like the headbands with like the animal ears, or they have like a little tail thing that's clipped to the belt loop on their pants and stuff like that. It can get a little cringy if people like actively act like the first owner or animals and stuff like that. But if they're having fun and not hurting anyone, that's perfectly fine. Plus, people always love going to Disneyland and seeing all the mascots and animals, like animal characters like Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. Like, I think that's probably spurred a lot of furries into the journey to being a furry and all that. And plus, like, people roleplay all the time, like D&D, like Dungeons and Dragons and RPG, or Renaissance Festival. That's like the equivalent of furries, but for the Middle Ages, with more black leg and less, I don't know, yiffy. But yeah, I would say, like, even though I'm not into, a lot of the aspects of it, but I say, oh, I like animal characters and stuff like that. And again, not that anyone's really listening. I could kind of stumble upon a YouTube channel I really kind of like. It's called, I think it's Nikki C. It's like a Japanese animated. I think it's all solo projects and stuff like that, or animations. It's NIKICIY and all that. Like, I think the latest video is like Dad's first time online shopping. It's really cute, so I recommend looking it up. And if you want, you drop a link, comment below, because I'll probably forget. But yeah, I think like that. And I know when it comes to like also furry stuff, people think like they're erotic as well. Like, oh, they're drawing like fan art of like naked animals or naked, like, even like in cartoons, like well known like cartoon characters, like they have like naked Tony the Tiger fucking the Trix Rabbit or something like that. I'm not even sure if that exists or not. But again, I feel like that's a small minority, and that's not my thing. Even with like regular art, like, this is like an actual like naked person I want to look at. Like, I don't see like making. I get people enjoy that, draw what you like, even if it's like X-rated or more adult. It's just kind of interesting to play with as well. So I get that point. Sometimes if it's like good art, I can appreciate it, but it's like not my thing in terms of adult content and stuff like that. Like, it's going to be creative to make art that way, but I don't know. I don't know if people feel like furries like force that down people's throat. Like, oh, look at my X-rated naked bear guy or lion or tigers or what. Oh my, I don't know. But yeah, I would say When it comes to being a furry, I would say, I think honestly it's more like I guess, but I think it's more like a yes than no. And I don't know if it's like a spectrum thing, but it's like one of those like confusing things as well. Like, what is a furry? Like, do you have to be into this? Do you have to be into that? Can you just like it a little bit? So I don't know. I feel like it's sometimes warped in the sense that people think have these preconceived notions in the sense like, oh, if you're furry, that's you in the fursuit, that's you yiffing, that's you role playing as your persona 100% of the time. Because or fursona. Did I say persona previously? But fursona is a proper term I should be using. And like I don't really have a fursona, even though I have this mascot character on the channel right there in the corner. So I guess that's the closest thing I have to a fursona. It's kind of like my online avatar and stuff like that with the YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, which should follow, by the way. But yeah, this is kind of like my 2.5 cents regarding furries. Like, yeah, I enjoy like aspects of it. It'd be kind of interesting to even go to a furry convention, but it's like I don't. So I guess some people when they get into discussions about it, like they feel like, well, I don't do furry stuff like this, that, and that, so I'm not really a furry, but I do like furry stuff like this, and that. I think like I like furry artwork, but I don't like fursuits or role playing and stuff like that. But to each its all. I think at the end of the day, to each its all, and yeah, I don't know, maybe something that I can look into more in terms of not just like diving into like I don't want to dive into a fursuit. Although that's one thing I always hear. It's like if someone's like maybe like an entertainment personality, someone that who can be recognized in public, and then go to a furry convention wearing a fursuit, it's like the ultimate incognito mode. So I think that's one plus to it as well. So you can just like enjoy a convention and stuff like that, and not be like hassled. Like, oh, I recognize you. Take a picture, take a selfie because you make that YouTube commentary, cartoons, whatever, Let's Player, blah blah blah. I'm not going to be anyone who's going to be recognized in public. So, but just some things I want to talk about for this week. Just have a few small rants. It's like a random segue and stuff like that. So one thing I wanted to rant about slightly is I feel like work related stuff, but you know, like how some coworkers have the I don't want to say like demeanor, but they have I don't know what you want to call it, where they can like joke with each other and stuff like that as well. I always find it weird, like sometimes it can be like acting like they're not helpful when they're going to be helpful and stuff like that. Like to give an example, like especially with like coworkers you don't really interact with because they work in different areas and all that. But I remember like getting at work being like, oh, I need some copy paper, and trying to find around, and like in this other area, like, oh, they have a few extra ones called like packs or whatever, and like, oh, can we borrow some paper? And then she's like, no. And then if he's thinking like, oh, okay, yeah, just kidding, like kind of thing. Like I can get like these absurd expectations and all that to have a humorous effect, but like worst case scenario is I could have just been pissed off and stormed off before she get a chance. Like, oh no, I was just kidding and stuff like that. So I guess my rant about that is like, why act like that in the first place? Like, I can get like joking, having fun and stuff like that. I don't want to be like a stick in the mud, but I always find like humor like that, like the no, oh yeah, of course. Like, especially when it's like meaning something or needing help. So I always find that like that demeanor is kind of, I don't know, just strange to me. Like I can again, you don't always have to be like a friendly bunch and like bubbly and happy with your coworkers, but I know you can be sassy, you can be sarcastic, you can be whatever. But it kind of feels like, what was the point of that? Like, sometimes I want to get in the mindset of like acting like I'm really upset by it or something like that. You know, I'm not that kind of person, but for the most part, I'm kind of straightforward. I guess like in a work environment as well. So like when you say no, like okay, that means no, and stuff like that. Or yeah, it's like don't get why people have like that almost unhelpful like joking around humor. Like hey, if you're gonna give me the paper in the first place, just say yes and give it to me. Like don't act like a jerk about it in a sense. Like not to say that that's a complete jerk, but that the worst case scenario can be pissed off and storm up and like, oh no, I was just kidding. Like here you go, and all that. And then speaking of copy paper, this is like a random rant. I'm sure very few people, even though no one's listening, will get. But what is the deal with copiers, like specific copiers that take ink toner? Why do they always have to have like 50 different types of toner? Like, oh, it has to be the C123 or the 89A, or oh, this is the 25X. It takes this one and that one. And the thing is, and I don't want to get too detailed about like where I work exactly for my day job because that's separate than this. But I swear we have like 5 or 6 different copiers and different models, even though they're all HP, they are the same company. Each one, I swear to God, takes a different toner and not compatible. Like, if you have this printer, you have to use this toner because if you have the other toner, even if you're making black and white copies, and that's black and white ink, black ink, like it doesn't work because it doesn't fit. Like they make them slightly different in terms of the shape of the toner. And like that's my rant. Like, why make so many different ones? It's crazy. Cause like, oh well, since this print copier is just a copier, or oh, this one has fax or something like that, and then oh, this one's just a printer, even though you're using a toner for it. And I can get for like differences between like if you have a copy that has color prints or maybe like a more high volume one, but I swear there's like 50 just for one company's ink toner stuff. So like narrow it down, I could say maybe having 4, like 2 black ink toners for like different like a basic and a more larger copier than for colors. But that's my rare. Like I'm sure other companies do that too. I just know in previous jobs it always seems like HP printers and copiers that we use, but like. There's like so many different toners and you have to have the right one, and God forbid if you order the wrong one, it's not compatible, then that sucks. But yeah, like get it together. I'm not sure if Big Paper is listening, or Big Copier. But yeah, why, I don't know why there's like 50 different, and it's like, it's not like a slight difference that you can get away with using a different toner model, I guess, but it's like, you have to have the exact one or it's not fitting that copier and you're not making copies. So I don't know what the hell is up with that. So last thing I wanted to rant about is kind of a peeve when it comes to like online arguments. And to give an example, like when somebody like has a reply tweet or a comment or kind of like a reply back, and it's in this format like, tell me you never blank without telling me you never blanked. And usually that's kind of like a sarcastic one, like, let's say someone's posting about, holidays and retail workers and say like, oh, retail workers shouldn't complain much about working during the holidays because they get extra bonus holiday pay and they should be grateful that they have a job. And then someone says like, oh, tell me you never worked retail without telling me you never worked retail. Huh. Because at first I always thought that was kind of snarky. Like, I can appreciate the snark too. Like I thought that was a good comeback. You're just kind of reading into it. It's just like, just seeing it overused so many times. It's like, well, you're not really adding anything to it. And I think the pretty much only impact it can really have is either like insulting the original poster, the previous poster, or like trying to convey that they're out of touch. But it's not like continuing the conversations or providing a good counterpoint or having those discussions. But then again, it's the internet, so you don't want to like invest so much time with arguing on the internet. I thought that's what a lot of people do. But it's like, I appreciate having like a snarky comeback, but I feel like at the end of the day that doesn't really add much. And it's to the point that it's just like a generic, like that. I think that's why it's starting to bug me now, because it's like so generic and like unoriginal. So it's like, tell me you can make an unoriginal comeback without telling me you can't make an original comeback. Stuff like that. And again, at the end of the day, it's people just arguing on the internet and people being out of touch in this side versus that side. But I mean, I feel like that format of like a comeback or a clapback or whatever, when it comes to Twitter or Facebook, whatever, like that tell me you never blank format I think it died quickly, or at least it gets annoying, pointless, and all that. Okay, now to end this podcast with another reoccurring segment, the Whatever Report. Just kind of like weird, funny tidbits, stories that I find online. So for the first story for the Whatever Report, here's one about a very special ice cream flavor coming out at the end of the month. It's from a company called Van Leeuwen, which I never really heard of. And this ice cream flavor is going to be Hidden Valley Ranch ice cream. And that sounds gross. But I was looking at the article. I guess they also did some weird brand stuff too, like Grey Poupon's ice cream and Kraft macaroni and cheese ice cream. So I'm not sure if this like is really worth it. Uh, I don't like ranch at all. Really, like sometimes stuff have like flavored with ranch, like the ranch palette. For something I just when it comes to like white goopy condiments, it's not always my thing. And I'm not sure if this is meant to eat by itself, but this thing like, oh, you can use it with like pretzels or potato chips and stuff like that. So I guess I can see using it as a dip, but I think with the dip, you just get like the regular ranch dip. Like ice cream is like this weird cold, like putting a scoop of ranch on your pizza and stuff like that. That just seems so weird. So I'm not sure if this is going to be exciting. Apparently, it's going to happen near the end of the month. The article says like March 20th to May 28th. But I'm looking like it's like normal stuff too. Like they mentioned, like honey graham cracker, strawberry shortcake, and stuff like that. I never heard of this brand before, so I'm not sure it's really good. But this Hidden Valley Ranch ice cream, yuck. Okay, for the next story, it takes place in Canada, and a judge ruled in Quebec that giving the middle finger is a God-given right. So I think that's kind of cool. Like, I guess there was some issues. I'm not sure what the full story, but like using the gesture and all that. So that's kind of cool. Like, I guess how people can get like really pissed off and stuff like that when it comes to giving the bird and getting flipped off. Although my kind of rule of thumb is like maybe avoid it unless it's really, really warranted. But like don't flip off the cops or don't flip off like someone of authority and stuff like that. And yeah, that's just a judge ruling that you can give the middle finger, at least in Quebec. So I don't know. I guess that's free speech. Just kind of an interesting thing that I came across in the Canadian press. I guess next story, looking through it, it happened in Sandy, Utah, I believe, just looking at the website for this news outlet. But a woman tried to burn away negative energy, and she was arrested. And this is kind of like messed up too, because it was in an apartment complex. This story, Liberty Heights apartment complex. And that she lit a fire to get rid of negative energy. Like I can get like feng shui or lighting essence or sage or something like that. But this is like really messed up because first of all, it's like really stupid. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? But also, you have neighbors next door, upstairs, and stuff like that. The good thing is that everyone got out safely. They said only two firefighters had minor injuries, but and one person even went to the hospital for smoke inhalation. Minor said, but yeah, if they didn't intervene, that could be a lot worse. And like, not only is that property damage, it could have like killed people and stuff like that. Like, that's like why I don't want to live in an apartment complex, even though that's what I have to do. I kind of wish I had more means to like live in a not necessarily a house, but it's kind of like away from neighbors, like because that's the thing. Like if things fuck up, then that can fuck with your shit too. Like whether maybe have a pipe leak and flooding and floods your apartment, or in this case, a fire, you can burn up your stuff. And especially since this was intentional and over the dumb shit reason that it's to burn away negative energy, just kind of grinds my gears. But yeah, that was worth mentioning for this whatever report. Next one, kind of a small story. It's like, okay, it happened because, of course, America. But there was chaos out at a Taco Bell after they'd run out of Crunchwrap Supremes. I guess a little fight broke off. I'm trying to think where this was done. Maybe this is one of the things that went down on TikTok. The article doesn't really show much, but I think it was more arguing than anything else. And this is a video going viral. And that's, I was like, if don't yell and fight with people who work fast food. Like, they get paid pretty much minimum wage and they deal with a bunch of shit all day. Like, don't make their lives harder. Therefore, that stuff runs out. And yeah, that is shady too. Like, you know, if you want a good menu item, but I can't imagine being so pissed off that I can't get a menu item that I start fighting or whatever. Like, again, it seems like it's mostly yelling, but I think they call the cops and all that. But yeah, we expect people. Like, of course, there's going to be times where they're going to be really shitty people of service, and that can be a huge hassle. But don't start fights at Taco Bell or any other fast food restaurants, because that's just tacky. That's just that's all I have to say. Because maybe this story rings with me because Taco Bell is like my go-to. Like, definitely not the best in terms of food, but it's one of my top fast food places. And this last story, I heard this from other places too, but this man trying to sell a Sioux Buffalo Wild Wings, claiming that the boneless wings are like overpriced at the basic nuggets, like it's false advertisements and stuff like that. I always felt like that was a joke too. Like, if your Buffalo boneless wings are basically just grown up chicken nuggets. I'm not sure how far this is going to go, but it's a complaint by Amin Hillam and the U.S. District Court of Northern Illinois. I'm not sure like how much of a like lawsuits it's going to be, like saying it's false advertising, but you are getting chicken without bone in it and it's fried. And also, just for disclosure, I love boneless wings just because I don't like deal with the bone and stuff. But like, if you want wings, any of that adamant about it, like, get bone in, that's fine. Like, if you get boneless wing, just expect it to be like chicken nuggets. That's what I expect. I just like having really good sauces too. Like, some places have like all these different sauces. Like, I'd rather have the chicken be boneless and all that. But it said like he suffered financial injury due to his false and deceptive conduct. But like, how much of a financial injury is that when it comes to buying an item off a food item off a menu? So I'm not sure if that's gonna lead to anything, but I think it was just worth like, what kind of person, like, I really don't see this really flying because it's just like that stupid. But yeah. Anyways, that will do it for the Whatever Report, and that will do it for this podcast. So thanks for listening. Probably gonna take some breaks because the stuff I want to work on, I've been actually doing like thumbnails and playing around with like video ideas, mostly like video essay commentary, some reviews and stuff like that, game related. But I don't think this becomes too much of a distraction. But sometimes I just don't think of too much to say and all that. Maybe one of these days to have more following, can have more like an interaction or like more segments based off, you know, an audience. If that ever happens, but I have fun with it regardless. So anyways, y'all take care and have a good rest of your day. Bye.